Hello guys. Tonight, we begin with a story whose title you've already heard, How Peasant In-Laws Negotiated Over a Pig. It is not the story of a war, a treaty, or a king. It is the story of a pig. Or more precisely, the story of what happened when a young man promised a pig to his new in-laws and what followed when the seasons turned. Hay ran short, and the pig grew fat, while the family grew distant. Let's begin in the yard of a small, timber-framed house, somewhere in the Midlands of England. Sometime in the 1350s, you are standing on uneven earth, the kind that's churned by chickens and the worn soles of wooden shoes. A small pig snorts near the stone wall, rooting in a trough that used to hold barley mash before the chickens pecked it all clean. The pig is no longer a piglet. Its back is round, its sides fleshed, and it squeals if you brush against its flank. In medieval terms, this is not a pet. It is a measure of wealth. One pig can mean lard, sausages, brine barrels, trade, and, in this particular family, it also means a promise. You are watching as Tom, the younger son of a tenant farmer, ties a length of rope around the pig's hind leg and murmurs something to his mother. She watches the pig closely, eyes narrow, lips tight. She has raised 6 children, buried 3, and sold 2 pigs before. She knows what a fat animal can get at market, but she also knows what it costs to keep one through the winter. The promise was made 2 weeks ago at a wedding. Tom married Margaret from the next village over. Her family is smaller, but slightly better off. Her father owns a bit of woodland, which means he can sell firewood and hunt rabbits, legally or at least without too much interference from the reeve. As part of the marriage agreement, Tom's family promised to send over a pig before Candlemas, a gesture of goodwill, a dowry supplement, bridge between in-laws. But now, the wedding feast is over. The leftover bread is stale, and the weather is colder. Tom's mother doesn't want to send the pig. Not because she's stingy, but because she's practical. The pig will eat through half their barley stores by February. Margaret's family has already received her linen dowry chest. Isn't that enough? And yet, a promise is a promise. Or is it? This is not a time of written contracts. Words spoken in front of witnesses carry weight, but how much weight and for how long depends on the people who remember them. You think back to the wedding feast, the muggy air of the hall, the priest half drunk on ale, Tom in his best tunic, laughing with his new brother-in-law. You remember the pig being mentioned, yes, but was it a vow, a joke, a suggestion? That distinction is everything now. It's winter, and the earth is sleeping under frost. The pig cannot forage, must be fed by hand. The in-laws have not yet visited since the wedding, and that silence feels deliberate, as if they're waiting, watching. You see the tension in the way Tom's mother kneads the apron in her fist. She does not want to break the promise, but she doesn't want to give away the pig, either. Tom tries to reason with her. I'll fatten the pig another month, then take it over. It'll be worth more. They'll be grateful. His mother replies, without looking at him, I'll think we're late. In the world you live in, timing is reputation. A gift delayed is a slight. Promise not met exactly when expected is seen as dishonesty. Word spreads. That family gave their daughter and didn't get the pig till spring. It sounds small, but small things are remembered. Across the field, you can see the faint roofline of Margaret's family house. It's only half a mile, but the distance feels larger now. The pig tugs at the rope, then flops down into the mud. Indifferent, but to you, to Tom, and to his mother, that animal might as well be a sack of coins, a symbol of trust or a very inconvenient mouth to feed. In the end, Tom shrugs. I'll take it next week. His mother does not answer. You walk back to the cottage, the smell of the pig still in your nose. You wonder if a gift becomes a burden. Does the obligation still hold? What happens if the pig is never delivered at all. It's more curiously, what happens if someone else delivers it first? The frost has not lifted, sits over the fields like a stubborn skin, refusing to crack even under the softest heel. The path that winds between Tom's house and Margette's family cottage is mostly hard now, though in a week's time it will be slick with thawed mud. It curves gently along the edge of a field left fallow, passes a shallow brook, then cuts behind a half-collapsed cart shed before finally skirting the side of the smaller house where Margette's mother plants cabbages in spring. You take this path today, not in haste, but with the kind of careful, watchful tread reserved for matters that require dignity. You are not alone. Tom walks ahead of you, holding his cloak closed at the throat with a finger instead of the wooden clasp that snapped last week. He is quiet. His boots crunch the frozen dirt in even rhythm, but he does not look back. It has been 3 weeks. Since the wedding, no pig has changed hands. No visits have been made since the feast. But this morning, after prayers and porridge, Tom's father had muttered something that hung in the air like the steam rising from the bowl. Someone needs to go over and speak properly. So here you are, walking the path between two houses that should be joined now not just by marriage, but by trust. But trust, like frost, is thin and easily broken. As you walk, you begin to wonder, who actually said it first? Who was the first person to mention the pig knot? The word, not the animal, but the idea of the pig as a gift. You think back to the wedding feast. It was loud and full of things to miss. There was barley bread, lentil stew, a sweet custard made from the last of the autumn eggs. There was too much ale. The priest laughed with a reeve. Someone's cousin vomited behind the alehouse. You remember Tom's father lifting his mug, elbowing Margette's uncle, saying something like, "And of course, good girl like that deserves a proper start of full pen, I'd say." The men had laughed. Later, you overheard Margette's mother telling her sister, "A pig. Can you believe it? I thought we'd be lucky with some apples." So was it a promise or a jest? That's what matters now, because in this world where few can read and even fewer can write, your word is your signature, and what is said at a wedding, especially with witnesses, might as well be carved in wood. You reach the cottage. It's smaller than Tom's, but tidier, with clean stacked kindling and no visible cracks in the wattle. Margette answers the door, cheeks pink from the cold, sleeves damped with dishwater. She looks surprised to see you, but not unhappy. Her smile is small and closed, the kind women use when they're guessing at your intentions. Inside, the warmth hits you. It smells like peats, smoke, and cloves. Her mother sits by the hearth, shelling peas into a wooden bowl. Her father isn't there. You exchange pleasantries. You ask after health, the cow, the roof. All of it is code for something else. Eventually, Tom clears his throat. We've come about the pig. There is a silence, not heavy, but aware. Margette's mother doesn't stop shelling peas, but her fingers slow, she says, as though she hadn't noticed a pig was involved. You glance at Tom. He tries to keep his voice casual. Just wanted to be sure we hadn't forgotten. It's growing well, fat enough already. Thought it might be more useful to send it once it's a bit bigger. Still no reaction, he adds, unless you need it now. Now she stops shelling. We're told Candlemas, she says quietly. That's still 3 weeks off, right? Tom replies. Another pause. Margette's mother sets the bowl down. You know, she says, it's funny. I wasn't sure if it was a real promise. Not at first. But everyone heard it. The reeve even laughed. Your father seemed proud of it. She stands now, smoothing her skirt. We didn't expect a gift. Truly, we gave our girl because she loved him. But when someone says a thing in front of the priest, and the pig is mentioned more than once, well, it's hard not to think of it as a promise. You can see Tom swallow, and then she adds, more softly, Of course, we can wait. But I wonder if your father hadn't meant it. Why did he mention the pig twice? That's the trouble. With memory, it doesn't belong to just one person. It belongs to everyone who was there, and each of them remembers it slightly differently. Tom smiles a little, rubs the back of his neck. Right? It'll come. Before Candlemas, you sip the weak beer Margaret offers. The visit ends politely. Say your goodbyes and step back into the frost. The walk back feels longer, though your feet take the same path. The pig still snorts in the yard, oblivious to the discussion unfolding around it. You watch it chew a turnip peel, content and slow, has no idea what it represents. Back inside, Tom's mother asks how it went. He says only, they remember. She does not answer. Neither does the pig. But you find yourself thinking again. If everyone heard the promise, whether it was meant or not, then what happens if the promise is broken? Or worse, what happens if someone else tries to collect on the promise before it's fulfilled? You remember the wedding, not the songs or the stew or the flickering light of the tallow lamps, but the moment when Margaret arrived with one shoe. It was not dramatic. She didn't trip or weep. She simply entered the barn where the ceremony was held with a quiet nod, hair neatly braided, bit of hawthorn in her hand, and one foot wrapped in a strip of linen where her shoe had split open on the muddy path from home. Her other shoe, the good one, still held its form, stitched by her mother to winters before with borrowed waxed thread. The broken shoe had been mended too many times. That day it gave way. No one mentioned it aloud. Not then, but everyone saw it. You did. Tom did. His mother did. And so, in a way, the wedding began with the visible reminder of everything this union was meant to fix. A marriage was many things in the 14th century. It was alliance, bargain, peace treaty, and future all rolled into one. From Margaret's family, poorer than Tom's, but better spoken of, the union offered stability. For Tom's family, it offered connection to a family that still had access to firewood and a reputation for quiet honesty, and for both families, it offered the hope that two modest lives might, together, survive the next hard season. The dowry Margaret brought was modest, but present. 3 shifts of linen, a wool shawl, a lidded salt pot, a wooden chest, though the iron hinges were rusted, and 2 hens, one white, one speckled. There was no coin. Coin was rare in the countryside, unless one had dealings with townsfolk, and neither family did. So the pick-a-pig that would one day produce piglets, or meat, or trade, was to be the gift from Tom's family. A kind of equalizer, not part of the dowry, but an acknowledgement. We accept your daughter, and we match her value. But now, weeks after the wedding, the pig still shuffles through slush in Tom's yard. Its sides grow thicker, it eats more, and the path to Margaret's family grows colder. There is a faint unease growing in the village. You hear it when you gather eggs from the shared pen. You hear it in the way the miller's wife says, "I thought the pig would have gone by now." You hear it when the priest jokes half-jokes at morning prayers. May all our vows be remembered. Unlike that poor creature left in the yard, everyone is watching. Canny, they remembered the shoe. The missing shoe is not spoken of. But lives in memory. 'Cause a bride with one shoe is not a tale, it's a sign that her family couldn't give her better. It's that she arrived not quite whole. And perhaps that's why the pig matters more than Tom's family ever intended. 'Cause the pig was not just about balance, it was about restoration. It was meant to erase the moment she walked in half-dashed shod. Now, does the opposite. Inside Tom's home, the conversation shifts each day. His mother wants to sell the pig. It eats too much, she says. Let them take a promise instead. His father, quieter, says only a word was given, even if it was poorly chosen. Tom is caught between them. He sits each night near the hearth, hands folded, not speaking. Margaret sits beside him, shelling peas into a cracked bowl. She doesn't bring it up. Not directly, but once, softly, she said. My mother asks after the pig. And that was all. Tom didn't answer. You begin to notice changes. The hens are fed less. The pig squeals longer in the morning. Margaret's smile fades around the edges. Tom's shoulders slope just a bit more. Something small and invisible is shifting like frost melting on thatch before anyone sees it happen. And you begin to wonder what happens when a marriage begins in imbalance. When a gift that was meant to repair something instead becomes another crack. 'Cause this is no longer just about livestock. It is about appearances, expectations, pride. It is about a bride who walked to her wedding with one good shoe and a bundle of stitched linen, and whether the gift she was promised will ever arrive or whether she will spend her days knowing that, in the end, she cost more than they could give. You remember the wedding, not the songs or the stew or the flickering light of the tallow lamps, but the moment when Margaret arrived with one shoe. It was not dramatic. She didn't trip or weep. She simply entered the barn where the ceremony was held with a quiet nod, hair neatly braided, bit of hawthorn in her hand, and one foot wrapped in a strip of linen where her shoe had split open on the muddy path from home. Her other shoe, the good one, still held its form, stitched by her mother to winters before with borrowed waxed thread. The broken shoe had been mended too many times. That day it gave way. No one mentioned it aloud. Not then, but everyone saw it. You did. Tom did. His mother did. And so, in a way, the wedding began with a visible reminder of everything this union was meant to fix. A marriage was many things in the 14th century. It was alliance, bargain, peace treaty, and future all rolled into one. From Margaret's family, poorer than Tom's, but better spoken of, the union offered stability. For Tom's family, it offered connection to a family that still had access to firewood and a reputation for quiet honesty, and for both families, it offered the hope that two modest lives might, together, survive the next hard season. The dowry Margaret brought was modest, but present. 3 shifts of linen, a wool shawl, a lidded salt pot, a wooden chest, though the iron hinges were rusted, and 2 hens, one white, one speckled. There was no coin. Coin was rare in the countryside, unless one had dealings with townsfolk, and neither family did. So the pig-a-pig that would one day produce piglets, or meat, or trade, was to be the gift from Tom's family, a kind of equalizer. It's not part of the dowry, but an acknowledgement. We accept your daughter, and we match her value. But now, weeks after the wedding, the pig still shuffles through slush in Tom's yard. Its sides grow thicker, it eats more, and the path to Margaret's family grows colder. There is a faint unease growing in the village. You hear it when you gather eggs from the shared pen. You hear it in the way the miller's wife says, I thought the pig would have gone by now. You hear it when the priest jokes, half jokes, at morning prayers, may all our vows be remembered. Unlike that poor creature left in the yard, everyone is watching, and they remember the shoe. The missing shoe is not spoken of, lives in memory, 'cause a bride with one shoe is not a tailor's a sign that her family couldn't give her better, that she arrived not quite whole. And perhaps that's why the pig matters more than Tom's family ever intended. The pig was not just about balance, it was about restoration. It was meant to erase the moment she walked in half-dash shot. Now, does the opposite. Inside Tom's home, the conversation shifts each day. His mother wants to sell the pig. Eats too much, she says. Let them take a promise instead. His father, quieter, says only a word was given, even if it was poorly chosen. Tom is caught between them. He sits each night near the hearth, hands folded, not speaking. Margaret sits beside him. shelling peas into a cracked bowl. Peasant, bring it up. Not directly, but once, softly, she said. My mother asks after the pig. And that was all. Tom didn't answer. You begin to notice changes. The hens are fed less. The pig squeals longer in the morning. Margaret's smile fades around the edges. Tom's shoulders slope just a bit more. Something small and invisible is shifting like frost melting on thatch before anyone sees it happen. And you begin to wonder, what happens when a marriage begins in imbalance? When a gift that was meant to repair something instead becomes another crack. 'Cause this is no longer just about livestock. It is about appearances, expectations, pride. It is about a bride who walked to her wedding with one good shoe and a bundle of stitched linen. And whether the gift she was promised will ever arrive her, whether she will spend her days knowing that, in the end, she cost more than they could give. The apron was nothing special, just a length of homespun linen, undyed, tied in a double, not at the hip. Oh, the fabric had once been white, but it faded over time to the color of porridge left too long in the pot. It had seen flour, blood, ash, and pig slop. But what mattered was how it moved. It flared when Tom's mother walked with purpose. It was twisted tight in her fingers when she was thinking, and sometimes only, sometimes it hung perfectly. Still, that was when you knew something was wrong. You see it one morning in late January, just after the morning mist lifts, but before the frost fully melts. She stands in the yard, apron bunched in one hand, the other resting on her hip. Her eyes are fixed on the pig again. Okay? It snorts and turns, tail twitching. Tom is inside, repairing a broken bucket hoop. Margaret needs bread in silence, canned outside. His mother is at war with her own promise. There's no snow on the ground anymore, but the thatch is still rimmed with white. And the mornings start before light. She's measuring what's left of the barley mash. It won't last till Candlemas, not at this rate. And yet, how can she give up the pig? You begin to see it more clearly now. The pig is no longer just a promise. It's leverage, reputation, pride. It's what keeps other mothers in the village from saying, well, we gave our daughter away without even a sausage in return. The apron twists again. She calls to Margaret through the open shutters. Come take a look at this bucket. It's not about the bucket. Margaret wipes her hands and steps outside. Tucking her sleeves under her belt, they stand side by side near trough. The pig slurps noisily at the bottom, unaware that its fate may rest in a sentence not yet spoken. She's fattening nicely, as Tom's mother says, not looking at her. Margaret nods. There's a long pause. You know, the older woman continues. We hadn't meant to raise another. Not after the last one. We had to salt that one too soon. Lost half the meat to spoil. Another pause. But this one, sheezing, proper pig. Now she turns to look at Margaret. Would be a shame to send her too early. The words hang. They're not quite a threat, not quite a plea. Margaret says nothing at first. Then, my mother said the same thing. She said, it's best not to rush slaughter. She also said, it's best not to delay a gift. It's gentle, but it cuts. Tom's mother nods slowly, folding the edge of her apron once, then again. Yes, wise woman. You watch them both. This isn't an argument. It's not even a conversation. It's something older, a ritual almost, a weighing of one woman's duty against another's pride, because the pig was not part of the formal dowry. It was offered afterward, during a laugh, in the space between cups. But now it binds two families together, and it's beginning to chafe. Later that day, Tom's mother takes a basket of turnips to the neighbors. On her way back, she passes the mill house, where two other women are pounding grain. They nod politely. But one of the millen, whose son is still unmarried, says just loudly enough, still got that pig, I hear. Tom's mother doesn't answer. Ellen adds, I'd VA salted it by now. Ways to keep a promise on 4 legs when your own bin's near empty. Still no reply. But when Tom's mother returns home, she doesn't go to the hearth. She doesn't go to the pantry. She goes outside again, stands beside the pig, stares. The apron is twisted so tightly in her fist, you can see her knuckles white and dot inside. Margaret hums quietly as she scrapes ash from the oven. She has not asked again about the pig. She doesn't have to, because here's what no one says aloud. The apron has become the language of negotiation. Height is how one woman shows she still holds the decision. That the promise may have come from a man's mouth, but the pig was raised by a woman's hands. Tom's mother is not just resisting the delivery of the animal. She is resisting the loss of something she tended, fed, protected from cold, and saved from early slaughter. To send the pig is to admit that the promise was real and that she had no part in making it. But perhaps she did. Perhaps by staying silent at the feast, by not correcting her husband or son. She agreed in her own way. That's what Margaret believes. She doesn't say it aloud, but you see it in how she watches her mother-in-law each day. It's looking for this subtle twist of fabric, the glance at the trough, the muttered sigh. The pig grows heavier. So does the silence. One evening, Margaret folds her own apron and places it on the table. I can go ask again, she says softly. Go to my mother. Ask if she still expects it. Tom shakes his head. She shouldn't have to expect it. It was said. Stenna's mother, without turning from the hearth, says, not everything said is meant, but isn't it, especially when it's said in front of others? You look again at the pig. Its hooves are caked with frozen muck. Its ears flick at imaginary flies. It lives because of this tension. It thrives on it. And you wonder how many gifts in history were never really gifts at all. It was not the food that mattered. Not really. It was what didn't appear on the table. You remember the smell first barley bread browning at the edges. Beans boiled to softness. Dried onions stewed with the last of the stored fat. The room was warm, close with wood smoke, and the fire gave off that dull, comforting crackle that meant someone had remembered to keep it burning all day. Margaret had scrubbed the long bench. She'd wiped the table twice and even tucked sprigs of dried mint along the hearth stones, not for taste, but for the impression of freshness. This was the first time her mother and father would visit since the wedding, since the pig had been promised and Tom's mother had decided to cook. Not a bad meal, not at all, but a deliberate one, carefully chosen, carefully edited. There was no meat, no cheese either, no eggs. The broth was thin, and though the beans were hearty enough, there was no lard in them. It's the memory of fat. A meal that said, we feed ourselves, but barely. A table that explained silently, you asked too much. Margaret's parents arrived late in the afternoon. The wind had picked up. Since morning, tugging at cloaks and turning noses red. Her father stomped his feet at the door before entering. Her mother brought in a small cloth bundle, perhaps dried apples, maybe winter herbs, a gift or a peace offering. Everyone smiled politely. There were hugs, light kisses to the cheek, but the greetings were short, not cold, just practiced, like everyone was playing their part. You take your seat near the fire. It's warm, but the tension is warmer. Tom pours ale into 4 earthenware mugs. His mother ladles soup into shallow bowls. It steams faintly. Margaret's father sniffs it once and says, smells wholesome, which is a kind word for thin. He eats quickly, efficiently, saying little. Margaret's mother dips her spoon slowly, pausing between bites. Eyes drift, not rudely, just thoughtfully over the table. You watch her glance toward the pantry. She doesn't linger, but she sees it. No meat hanging, no cheesecloth bundles, no signs of slaughter or curing. It's Tom's mother who speaks first. We've had little rain since Epiphany, she says, setting her spoon down. Barley came up patchy. Turnips rotted early, still digging through what's left. Her voice is even, not defensive, just factual. Margaret's mother nods once. Ours fared no better. Another pause. The fire pops, and a log shifts. Someone clears their throat. We'd meant to slaughter by Martin. Miss Tom's mother continues. She was still too lean, ashamed to waste a good sow. For pride's sake, there it is. Not quite the word pig, but near enough. A reference dressed in modesty, a shield in the form of a fact. Margaret's mother doesn't respond at first. She places her spoon gently on the rim of her bowl. Thin, with a tone so even it could be carved from wood, she says, sometimes a promise costs more than the thing itself. And you feel it? That slight shift, the tilt in the room, because it wasn't just about the pig. It was about whether Margaret's family had overreached, whether Tom's family had overpromised, whether anyone remembered the words exactly as they were. Sador only remembered what they wanted. Margaret's father wipes his mouth and says, soup's good. Got warmth in it. It's a kindness, a redirect. But it doesn't erase what's been said. Later, after the meal, Margaret shows her mother the loom in the corner. They speak softly about weft and thread count. Her father steps outside to examine the new fence post Tom's been mending. And Tom's mother collects the bowls slowly, deliberately, as if each one were heavier than the last. When the guests leave, the wind is stronger. Margaret watches them walk down the path. They don't look back. Inside, Tom says, well, they ain't. No complaints. But Margaret says nothing, 'cause she saw the way her mother's hand hovered just a moment too long over the hearth. She saw how her father avoided the pantry with his eyes, and she knows. They noticed what was missing. That night, the pig squeals once in the dark, a sharp sound. Nothing unusual, but it wakes no one except Margaret. She lies there thinking, not about meat, not about the meal, but about the feeling she had when her mother said that line. Sometimes a promise costs more than the thing itself, because Margaret had watched her mother give gifts for years. Loaves at births, eggs after funerals, herbs for coughs. A pinch of dried thyme tucked into a girl's apron before her first vigil fast. But always, always, her mother gave freely. So if her mother expected this pig still, after all these weeks, Sid wasn't because of greed. It was because she believed in the weight of words, and Margaret was starting to believe in the weight of what wasn't said. What does it mean when a family cooks a full meal just to show what they don't have? How long can you leave an empty place on the table before someone decides it's no longer being saved? It starts with a question that no one asks directly. Not to you, not to Tom, certainly not to Tom's mother. But it drifts, as gossip does, settling first in the pauses between greetings and then in the way someone folds their arms or scrapes a hoe into the dirt with a little more effort than necessary. Isn't it late for slaughter? Someone says near the well, not to anyone in particular, just out loud. You're there when it happens, filling a bucket. The woman who says it doesn't look at you. She turns instead to her own pail, humming faintly. But the man next to her glances up, catches your eye, and offers the smallest shrug. A shrug that says, I didn't say it. But I heard it too, and that's the beginning. A week later, someone remarks that pigs don't winter well on a weak feed. If you wait too long, he mutters, the meat's gone to bone. Ken, it isn't addressed to anyone, Kes said as he sharpens his scythe. Another day, a child runs past your gate, giggling, calling out, you still got your pig? Before disappearing behind the baker's wall. You don't know if she meant it kindly, she even understood what she was saying. But Tom hears it too. He stands very still, hammer in hand, halfway through mending a loose cardboard. Then he sets the hammer down without a sound. and goes inside. No one says the word dowry. No one uses terms like default or obligation. Those are for clerks, not villagers. But everyone knows what isn't being said. You think about the fence that separates your house from the road. It's not high. It's never needed to be. Most days, a neighbor's child leans over to chatter about goats or the bread she saw rising on her mother's table. But now, it feels like a threshold, like a line between people who know and people who pretend not to. The pig, meanwhile, grows quieter. It used to squeal every morning, demanding scraps and slop. Now, it grunts more than it caws. Its belly hangs low. It moves like it knows it's being watched, because it is. Every time someone passes by, they glance toward the sty. They do it with practiced casualness, just a flick of the eyes, a tilt of the head, but they all look. You stop leaving food near the gate. Too many questions. Too many people asking, still feeding her well. As though the pig were a shared project, and, in a way, it has become one. Everyone has a stake, now not in the pig itself, but in the story around it. Did Tom's family promise too much? Did Margette's family demand too little? Should the sow have been given at the wedding feast, or fattened through winter, then handed over at Easter? No one agrees, but no one forgets either. Even the priest remarks on it, indirectly. During a sermon, he speaks on honesty. Let your yes mean yes, he says, his eyes skimming over the congregation. And your no mean no, for anything more than this comes from temptation. It's a familiar line from the gospel, one you've heard before, but this time he lingers. Even small promises carry weight, he adds, especially when made before witnesses. Tom's mother doesn't flinch. She doesn't shift in her seat or glance at anyone. She keeps her gaze fixed on the altar, hands folded, expression calm. But Margate leans forward slightly. It's just enough for you to see her eyes narrow. After church, as people mill around the chapel yard, the talk is quieter than usual, friendly but subdued. Someone compliments your cloak. Another remarks on how quickly the grass is greening near the river. But no one brings up the pig, not directly, until that night. It's your neighbor, Hilda. She comes to borrow a bit of salt, but she doesn't bring her usual basket. It's just her apron, folded to make a pouch. She stands in the doorway longer than necessary. Then she says, I don't mean to meddle, which always means someone's about to. But folk are starting to talk like the sow's cursed. You laugh awkwardly. Cursed? She's just a pig. Hilda nods, but doesn't smile. A pig who's lived past her time, and a promise that's lived even longer. You want to tell her to go? That it's none of her business. But she's your neighbor. She was at your wedding. She gave you a string of onions and a wooden spoon with a carved heart on the handle. She helped you sweep the chapel steps before the feast. So instead, you say, we're sorting it. She sighs. I know you are. But talk doesn't wait for sorting. She leaves then, with a nod and a murmur of thanks, even though you didn't give her the salt. That night, Tom says nothing during supper. He eats quietly, staring at the table. His mother clears her throat once, but doesn't speak either. You lie awake long after the fire goes dim. The pig snorts once, somewhere outside. You hear the faint rattle of a bucket in the breeze. You think about the child who asked if you still had it, about the priest's sermon, about Hilda's face. What happens when everyone has a version of your story, and none of them match? And what do you do when the thing you were promised has started to cost more than it's worth? You're pressing a handful of nettles into a clay pot near the hearth, careful not to sting your fingers. The stew needs something bitter to balance the last of the salted turnips. Outside, the shadows have started to slip along the fences. It's too early for full dark, but late enough that no one comes by unless they need something. So when the knock sounds, soft and brief, it catches you off guard. Not the heavy-handed rap of a neighbor borrowing oil. Not the impatient thump of a child after bread. This is a knock that hesitates, like someone weighing whether to turn back. You set down the pot. Tom doesn't rise from the bench. He looks toward the door, but says nothing. His mother stiffens slightly, then brushes her palms on her apron and disappears into the back room. You open the door. It's Margaret's brother. You haven't seen him up close since the wedding, though you remember his wide shoulders and the thick braid that hangs down his back. He's older than Margaret, already with 3 children of his own, and he rarely comes this far from the edge of the woods where his family keeps their goats. He's holding his hat in his hands. His boots are muddy, and there's a faint streak of blood on the sleeve of his tunic, likely from butchering. He nods once. I won't stay. You step aside anyway. He doesn't enter. I came to speak for my sister, he says, not for myself. You nod, though you don't know what response he expects. He glances down the road, then back at the house. The talk's turned mean, he says. It wasn't kind before, but now it's mean. You know what he means? Lately, the whispers have grown sharper. It's no longer just quiet questions and sideways glances. Now it's barbed remarks passed too loudly in the lane. Children singing little rhymes they don't understand. Someone left a scrap of meat on your gatepost last week, rotten, fly-blown, and tied with twine. You buried it without a word. She's tired, he says. Margaret. You hear it in his voice, that edge of brotherly protectiveness. Not anger, not yet, but something close. You gesture toward the bench just inside the door. You can sit. He shakes his head. Isn't a sit-down thing. It's a sit thing. You wait. She's willing to return the cheese. The words come fast, like he wants to get them out before he changes his mind. You blink. The cheese. He nods. The one your mother brought last Michaelmas. You remember it. It's a hard-aged wheel wrapped in cloth, rubbed with herbs. Tom's mother presented it like a queen bestowing tribute. Margate had accepted it with thanks, though her mother hadn't looked pleased. It wasn't meant as payment, you say. He shrugs. Doesn't matter. People think it was, so we'll give it back. That way, no one can say she took more than she gave. You can hear Tom behind you, rising from the bench. You don't turn, but you feel the shift in the air as he comes to stand near the doorway. The brother continues. In the sow, he stops. You wait. He clears his throat. We'll take her. Not now. After she farrows. Your eyes widen. You think she's pregnant? He nods. Kept a boar near the road last month. Gate was loose. It happens. Glance toward the sty, though you can't see it from here. The pig's been quiet lately. Sluggish, but you thought it was just the cold. She carries low. He adds. No one says anything for a moment. Then Tom steps forward. And after, his voice is even, but you recognize the stiffness in it. The brother shrugs. You keep a piglet. We take the rest. It's generous. More than generous. Especially if the sow bears a full litter. But it's also final. It's an unspoken end to the thing that's weighed on everyone for months. You open your mouth to speak. But Tom touches your arm. We'll think, he says. We'll talk as a family. The brother nods. Do it fast, for someone else decides for you. Oh. He places his hat back on his head, turns, and walks into the dusk. You close the door. For a long time, no one speaks. Tom returns to the bench. His mother reappears from the back, eyes sharp. What did he say? She asks. You repeat it all? She listens, arms folded. When you finish, she sits. Not heavily, not defeated, just thoughtful. Well, she says finally, they've made their move. You stir the pot. Though the fire's gone too low to cook anything now, she watches you. The girl has sense. Her brother does too. Tom says nothing. Outside, the pig grunts faintly. "K," and you wonder if it knows that its fate has just shifted. You look at your husband, your mother-in-law, the shadows on the wall. What do you do when the offer is fair, but it still feels like loss? And what's left behind when a pig, a promise, and a dozen whispered rumors have already rewritten the shape of your marriage. A woman with a basket, or a boy who lingers near the bakehouse too long and hears more than he should, or the cart driver whose mare needs water, who stops for a moment outside your gate and notices that Tom's mother is scrubbing the pig trough at dusk, with a scowl on her face and her sleeves rolled too high. By sunrise the next day, 3 people you didn't speak to are speaking about you. By noon, 6 more, and by the time you reach the market, it's clear everyone already knows. You're not there to talk, of course, just to trade. A small sack of lentils, 2 wax cloths, a cracked butter dish from your mother-in-law's trunk, and tucked into your apron, 5 dried apple slices you were saving from last autumn, hard and sharp with the taste of smoke from the drying rack. There for Bartha, the tanner's wife. She's always like them. You didn't plan to see her, but you know she'll be there, arms full of hide scraps and soapstone buttons. She always is. You make your way through the market slowly, sidestepping puddles from the melted frost. The stalls are noisy, but not loud. No one shouts this early. Everyone is watching. You pass 2 young girls who stare openly. One whispers into the other's ear and then giggles, not cruelly, just curiously. You walk faster. Bartha is already at her usual spot, just near the well, spreading bits of worn leather on a slanted board. She sees you before you reach her. "Well," she says, smiling with her eyes, but not her mouth. "Aren't you up early?" You nod. "Needed a few things?" She glances at your hands. Trading or just carrying stories? You take the apple slices from your apron and place them in her palm. She looks at them for a long moment before folding her fingers around them. "These, the last of yours." You nod again. She says nothing for a while. Then she tucks them into her basket and begins arranging her buttons. "I heard there was a visit, a knock at dusk, so it's reached even her." You don't ask how. Bartha doesn't press, but she doesn't stop either. "They say he came with terms. That the pigs with a child. That your Tom said nothing, and your mother-in-law stared like stone. You shift your weight?" "People say much." Bartha smiles again, this time wry. "People always do. Doesn't make it less true." You pick up one of the leather scraps. It's soft, already shaped for a boot heel, and what do you say? Bartha looks up. Her eyes are sharp, but not unkind. "I say that if a pigs become the measure of peace between 2 houses, then the real trouble started long before the sty was cleaned." You don't answer. She sets down the buttons. "Take what you need. I'll take the apples for all of it." You shake your head. "It's generous." Bartha snorts. "Too generous is charging coin for gossip when I've already heard it twice." You both smile, just a little dot. As you leave, you feel the weight of her gaze on your back, not cruel, just steady, like she's hoping you won't fall. You pass the baker's stall on the way home. His son gives you a crooked nod. You see him slip behind the canvas, whisper something to a girl with a crooked braid, and both of them turn to glance at you before pretending they didn't. You don't slow down. At home, Tom is chopping wood. Your mother-in-law is kneading. Neither of them mention the market. Neither of them ask what you heard, but you know they already know by afternoon. A neighbor drops by with 2 eggs and a just passing excuse. By evening, a cousin you haven't spoken to in months comes by to borrow a kettle. By nightfall, the pig grunts once in its sleep and turns into straw. You lie awake, listening. What's heavier, the weight of a pig, or the weight of everyone who thinks they know what it means? You notice it first when you go to the sty before dawn. The pig doesn't rise as quickly as she usually does. She grunts, but stays settled into the straw, her body spread wide and deep like bread left to rise. Too long. You call softly. She turns her head, but not her body. Tom hears the hesitation in your breath. Steve steps over, wipes his hands on his tunic, and looks into the pan. "Huh?" he mutters. "Huh?" Well, that's all he says. You both know what it means. A pig with a belly like that means the deal will have to be spoken aloud now, not just hinted at behind fences or folded into visits that pretend to be about weather. It means something was shared, bread, agreed upon, whether you wanted it or not. You take the ash bucket from beside the hearth and carry it out to scatter across the yard. The ground is slick with last night's frost, and the patches of old straw are darkened from where the pig has laid. You spread the ashes thin, trying not to think of the weight in the sty. Your mother-in-law comes out with a cracked bowl full of peels. She says nothing, just walks straight to the pen, tosses the scraps, and waits for the pig to rise. It doesn't. She peers over the fence. Well, she says, echoing Tom. Then she glances sideways at you. You'll want to watch her now. She's got months ahead, and not all of them easy. Q. Nod, though it wasn't a suggestion. Tom is already moving toward the shed, muttering something about the broken latch on the back gate. The pig finally shifts and rises slowly, carefully. She eats the peels, one by one, without hurry. Her ears flick at nothing. Her breath clouds the air. You notice she's already begun pawing a little hollow in the straw with her back legs, like she's preparing, though she doesn't know what. For by noon, Tom brings in a bundle of fresh straw. He doesn't say it's for the pig. He doesn't need to. He sets it near the door, and your mother-in-law begins plucking at it, checking for rot, muttering about mold in last year's batch. But when she carries it outside, she doesn't spread it, just anywhere she piles it in the pen's shaded corner, so where the sun won't hit come spring. You feel something settle in your chest. Not peace, not quite dread, just the quiet press of something beginning. When you go back out that evening, a neighbor's child is peeking over the fence. You don't say anything, neither does she. She just stares at the pig, her small hands gripping the slats like she's never seen one lie down that way before. The next morning, two more neighbors stop to borrow something. A bowl, a knife, bit of honeycomb, but really, there, just peeking over the fence. By the third day, the priest's boy, on his way to the mill, slows his steps near the pen. He whistles without looking directly, but you see him. Everyone sees something growing, and with it comes the pressure. Not spoken, not pressed into words, but hanging in the air like the smoke from the ash. Bucket you carry again and again to the yard. What if she bursts well? What if she doesn't? Who helps? Who waits? Who names what belongs to whom? It's still early when you notice the linen. It's thin and gray-white, folded once, draped over the rough post by the hearth. It isn't yours. You didn't put it there, but someone has. And in a home like this, things don't arrive by accident. It's a strip cut from the corner of an old undertuna woven thick, coarsely stitched at the edge to stop the unraveling. It smells faintly of dried herbs. You touch it once, then tuck it into the crook of your apron and go back to the morning fire as if nothing's changed. But something has. There's a rhythm to these days, and it has been thrown off, ever since the pig matter turned from a mutter into a market rumor. Nothing has stayed still. The men say less over meals. The women say even less in the yard. But eyes speak across fences, and the silence says more than shouting ever could. The linen, that's not just a cloth, it's a message, and you know exactly who left it. It was likely his mother, the one whose apron smelled like bay leaves, and whose left hand always trembled when she carried firewood. You hadn't spoken in 4 days. Not since the exchange behind the chicken hutch, when she'd asked, without asking, whether your youngest son would still be welcome come planting time. You'd answered by brushing straw out of your hair. That had been enough, and now the linen sits quietly, it's folded and waiting to be noticed. It means there is salve in the jar if you need it. It also means we didn't mean for this to last so long, And deeper still, beneath every thread, we can't be seen asking for help, but we still need it. That's the part you understand, because in your village, no one says what they mean. Not directly. Not when there are other ways. A pot left at the edge of the path. A heel of bread pushed gently onto someone else's table. Strip of linen, folded and left in a place where the fire will notice. Outside, sun is already high, though no one has mentioned the time aloud. The pig is still there, growing, eating, breathing. You can hear it sometimes, a short snort through the slats in the wall. The animal doesn't know it is the center of a human storm. It doesn't care about promises made between grandmothers or who said what at the boundary stone. It only wants food and rest and enough water to roll its belly in the mud before dusk. But everyone else cares, and so you spend the morning turning things over in your mind, how to acknowledge the linen without seeming weak, how to mend things without seeming like you've surrendered. Your husband won't speak of it. He's still angry less at the other family than at the fact that something this small has appended his routine. He mends the cart yoke and pretends not to hear when your eldest says something about the sow's weight being good this season. The knock at the door comes near midday. It's not loud, just enough. And of course, it's her. She doesn't enter. All the way. She stays on the threshold, hands folded, a basket hooked into the crook of her arm, like she's bringing eggs, though you both know there are no eggs today. She speaks without looking at you, eyes tracing the floor, the hearth, the back wall where the herbs hang. Do you still have the root? She asks. You nod, then use it. The pig's limping. It's not an apology, but it's a step, so you answer without smiling. There's boiled barley left, if she can be made to eat it. And just like that, you're helping again. The unspoken truce begins in small ways. You take the root from the store box crushed angelica, dried last spring, and you boil it until the kitchen smells sharp and green. You wrap it in the same linen strip she left, then hand it off without ceremony. It will be pressed into the pig's ankle joint with a bit of ash and tallow. It might help, it might not. That isn't the point. The point is, you gave it, she took it, and neither of you said anything about the debt. No one mentions the pig's ownership. No one brings up the girl, or the missing gift, or the muttered insult someone heard secondhand in the alley by the mill. Instead, there is the cloth, dest. The barley dot there is the unsaid blessing. You remember when the girl came to live in your house, arms too thin for the sleeves you gave her, eyes darting like she was waiting for a slap that never came. She had brought so little with her, just a few embroidered cloths, a comb with 3 teeth missing, and one slipper that never fit right. But she had worked and worked and worked. No complaints, no sleeping late, no noise when her joints ached in the frost. And when the baby was born and didn't breathe, she buried the cry in her own shawl and kept helping with the laundry like grief was just another stain to scrub out. She had come from that other house, the one whose roof sagged, but whose pride never did. And now, her mother sends linen out for the baby, or for the hearth, or for warmth but for the pig dot. Because in this village, the pig is the conversation. It holds all the weight of everything else no one dares say. Later that week, a small gift arrives. A wedge of hard cheese, wrapped in a cloth that smells like wood smoke and old mint. It's left on your table by the daughter herself, while your back is turned and the baby squalls in the next room. You don't say thank you. You don't offer anything in return, but you cut a thin slice and leave it on the sill outside, where anyone walking past can see it and pretend it's for the birds. This is how apologies happen now, not with words, with offerings. Then come the whispers, but gentler this time. Not the sharp-edged kind that carry blame, but the kind that hum softly between neighbors, asking careful questions. Did she give the barley willingly? Is it true she took the root from her own box? And the cloth was hers, wasn't it? The story is rewriting itself in real time. Not about theft or insult anymore, but about generosity. It's about two households trying awkwardly, clumsily to mend a wound no one will name, and the pig still limps. But now, it's fed, and someone even swept out the straw behind its fresh bedding laid. Without asking, these things are noticed. Even when no one says a word, you go out one night to gather the last of the onions. Before the frost bites too deep, the air smells like earth and cold bark. Behind you, the house glows faintly with firelight. And just as you pull the final onion from the ground, you hear it. The pig snorts twice, and then, for the first time in days, it squeals. Not in pain, not in fear, just a normal, greedy pig noise. It wants to eat, it wants to live, and maybe, that's enough to begin again. But even now, it's one thing no one has done. No one has said out loud, "We made a mistake." No one has said, "The pig belongs to both houses." No one has asked, "Can we speak plainly about what happened?" The linen helped, the root helped, the cheese helped, but the silence still sits between the families. Like a sleeping dog, no one wants to wake. The strip of linen is still knotted on your wrist by the time you reach home. It has grown damp with the sweat of work and the nervous heat of what you've just done. You try not to look at it. You try not to remember the look on your mother-in-law's face when she realized what the cloth meant, that the other family had accepted help. But it's not just her face you avoid now. The whole cottage feels tilted when you step inside. The light through the shutter falls differently. The rushes on the floor look like they've been stepped on by strangers. The pot of barley on the hearth smells faintly burnt, though no one touched it. Or maybe someone did. You were gone longer than you meant to be. Your father-in-law is by the fire, pretending not to notice you, twisting a piece of wool between his fingers that isn't part of any task. It's just something to do, a reason to keep his hands busy. Your husband isn't home yet. Your mother-in-law is inside the other room, and her silence is as thick as smoke, the kind that stings even after the fire has gone out. You set the basket down. Not hard, but not quietly either. No one says a word. You don't sleep much that night, not because of arguing. There isn't any, but because of how careful everyone is not to make noise. That kind of silence has its own weight. You lie in bed with your eyes open and listen to the heavy thump of the pig shifting on the other side of the partition wall. She's not a small creature anymore. She used to be something that could be cradled in a shawl. Now she's nearly the size of the bench and twice as heavy. And she's unhappy. She's restless. You can hear her grumbling, shuffling, kicking at the straw in the dark. Your husband finally speaks, voice low and flat. She knows. You don't ask who he means. He doesn't need to say it. She's settled. You whisper. But it isn't clear whether you mean the pagor, his mother. By morning, the cottage smells like damp wool and bruised straw. The pig has overturned her water, again soaking the ground and the rushes. She's snorting and nudging the door of her little pen like she wants out. You crouch and push your hands into the straw. It's warm underneath. Maybe too warm. The pig eyes you suspiciously and flicks her ears, sides heaving in and out. She's not right, your father-in-law says suddenly, standing behind you, rubbing his hands against his belt like he wants to say more, but won't. She's too hot. You nod. She wouldn't eat this morning. I think she didn't sleep either. She's not sick, he says, though it sounds more like hope than certainty. She's just ... unsettled. That afternoon, someone comes to the door. Not someone from town. Not the family you helped. Not even your aunt with the bad knee and the better gossip. It's the Reeves boy. He stands on the edge of a threshold, not stepping in, not stepping back, shifting his weight from foot to foot. He doesn't say why he's there, not directly. He asks about the sow. Just asks, is she eating? Is she calm? Is she still in your home and not, say, being fattened for an unexpected feast? Your mother-in-law gives short answers and doesn't invite him in. He leaves without another word. But you all know what it means. Someone has spoken. Someone has told. And the pig, this creature who hasn't even left the room in days, is now everyone's business again. That night, she bites. She's never bitten anyone before. It's not when she was taken from her mother. It's not when the neighbor's children pulled her tail. It's not even when the straw got so rotten under her belly she had sores on her side. But tonight, when your mother-in-law tries to move her to fresh straw, the pig rears back and snaps. It's not a deep wound, just a scrape, but it draws blood. And that's enough. Enough to make your mother-in-law shout. Enough to wake the baby in the cradle next door. Enough to make your husband step between them, arms out, not sure who needs shielding, his mother or the pig. You fetch a cloth. Not the linen this time. Such an old, frayed rag that used to be part of a tunic. It smells faintly of mold. She presses it to the bite without a word. She doesn't look at you. The pig curls back into her pen, puffing, eyes bright and wild, watching. The next morning, the decision is made without you. She goes. Your mother-in-law says no one disagrees. Your husband doesn't argue, though his jaw tightens. Your father-in-law doesn't look up from the bit of wool he's still twisting. The same piece, frayed. Now, you watch the pig. She's calmer this morning, as if she knows what's coming. You wonder if she understands the silence around her. She can smell decisions in the air, the way she can smell oats or bad weather. You wonder if animals feel betrayal. You're sent to fetch the cart. It's a long walk to the neighbor who has one. Not fond of your family. There was a dispute once over a fence or a goat or a niece. No one remembers the details, only that he mutters when he sees you and charges more for lint tools than anyone else in the parish. Still, he gives you the cart. It's too quickly. You'll need rope, he says, handing it over. That sow won't go quiet. You look at him, startled. He hadn't said what the cart was for. He just smiles, not kindly. Word travels. Back home, the pig resists. She digs in her hooves, squeals, throws her weight against the pen door. She doesn't want to leave the cottage. She doesn't want to be led, but she doesn't bite again. Instead, she looks at you just once, like she's asking a question, and you can't answer it. You tie a piece of wool to the cart's side, where it'll catch the wind. It's not a necessary gesture. It's not for the pig. It's not for luck. It's not even for your mother-in-law. You're not sure who it's for. The wool frays in the breeze. As the cartwheels begin to creak, the pig walks beside it, still heavy, still grumbling, but no longer fighting. People watch from windows. Some pretend they're not. So don't bother pretending. Someone spits on the ground. Someone else shakes their head like they knew it all along. At the edge of the village, the path splits. One way leads to the family you helped. The other leads to the Reeves cousin, who's been known to take pigs off people's hands for the right price, or in exchange for silence. You stop. You wait for your husband, but he's waiting for you. Your hand tightens on the rope. Which way will you turn, and will the pig forgive you? Whichever you choose. There's a sour edge to the air inside the cottage, one that clings even when the shutters are cracked to let the breeze in. You've smelled worse things than boiled turnips, of course, but there's something about a burned one that turns the inside of your nose to ash. It wasn't meant to catch. It was left too long while voices rose. My, it's at the center of the room, like a reminder no one asked for. The bowl is shallow, chipped along one side, and older than most of the furniture. It's not the kind you bring out for company, but it's the only one clean enough to carry food today. And someone had to serve something, or the silence would have turned into stone. No one speaks first. That's part of the dance. The son-in-law chews too loudly. The mother-in-law frowns. The daughter scolds the child for fussing. Her brother sets down his bread a little too hard. It is not shouting that spreads tension through the room, it's restraint. The argument isn't new. It started somewhere back near the pig. then pass through wool, grain, shoes, aprons, and gossip. But it always returns here, to the table, where expectations simmer beside the soup pot. Someone remembers a favor that went unpaid. You don't even know who put the turnip on. The fire wasn't hot enough earlier, so someone must have added more wood and then forgotten. Or maybe they remembered too late and let it burn out of spite. You wouldn't be the only one thinking that. The piece of wool still hangs beside the door. Edge is ragged now, tugged too many times by too many hands who came in with the question still stuck in their teeth. So, who keeps the pig? It's not about the pig anymore. It's about the way eyes are a little too sharp now at mealtime. The way the bench creaks louder than it used to. The way children are quieter when they sit down. Like they can hear the current of things grown-ups won't say. No one has touched the clay bowl again. The burned turnip rests at the bottom like an accusation. The salt wasn't passed today. It's never a good sign. Your cousin's boy knocked his cup over, reaching for bread, and the splash went ignored. A year ago, that would have earned a scold and a cloth. Now, someone just wiped it with their sleeve, and no one looked up. You can't remember the last time laughter came from this room without being forced. The married daughter says, "Finally, we'll need more straw if the pan's to hold through the next rain." It's the first neutral sentence of the day. It's a hand stretched across the table, if anyone's willing to take it. Her brother doesn't answer right away. He bites into a crust so thick it cracks, then swallows without speaking. Their mother sighs, that soft, long sigh, the one she used to make before she knelt to scrub the hearth, or before she reached for another route to peel. It means she has already considered all the ways this could go, and none of them end with her satisfied. The child burps. It's small, but perfectly timed. That's the only sound that draws a laugh, and even that is short, like everyone regrets letting it slip out. The bread is dry today. The butter was stretched too thin, and someone salted it too early. The food says more than the words do. It says who felt like working and who didn't, who got up angry and who stayed up late, who cared enough to stir the soup before it stuck. Your eyes keep drifting to the hearth, where the pot still swings, but no one has tended the coals. They're gray on top, waiting for someone to rake them, but no one wants to move. Moving would mean choosing a side, or breaking the silence, or being the one who admits they're still hungry, despite the mood. The burned smell won't go away. It lives in the corners now, tucked into the wool of your sleeve, under the rim of the clay bowl, inside your mouth. You taste it when you swallow. I can bring straw from the neighbors. The son-in-law says finally, not looking up. They offered before, for nothing. It's a simple thing, but in this room, it's a declaration. The mother-in-law lifts her eyes slowly. You'd owe them for that, she says, flat. We already owe them. Borrowed the wheelbarrow last month. That's the daughter's voice, quiet, even but you hear the edge under it. We returned it. That's the brother. He hasn't touched his bread since the crust cracked, and the handle was cracked when we gave it back. The mother adds, just loud enough. The child fidgets again. You catch a whisper. She wants to know if she can go outside. She's ignored. The adults are settling in now. The argument has come to sit down at the table like a guest no one invited. You're not sure where we'll go. No one's shouting, but the words have weight. They get passed around like ladles, heavy and full. The pig grunts outside, distant but clear. The window frame rattles faintly in the breeze. It's a small sound, but it cuts through everything else. The daughter stands to clear the bowl, even though it isn't empty. Even though no one said the meal was done. Even though there's a piece of burned turnip still sitting there like a coal. She walks it to the corner, dumps it, and scrubs the bowl without water. The scraping of the burned edge echoes across the stone floor. You watch her rub at the black ring left inside the clay. It doesn't come out easily, and even when it does, the bowl is still hot. You wonder if they'll eat together tomorrow. If the pig will settle, the wool will stay where it's pinned, or if someone will tear it down and say the deal is done. But you also wonder this: if no one says sorry, and no one gives in, then who decides what's fair when the burned taste lingers in every mouth? The hearth is cold, not dying cold. No smoke rises from it, not even a curl. No embers hide beneath the ash. It's as if no one lived here at all. And yet the walls remember last night. They hold onto the voices that didn't rise, the eyes that didn't meet, and the burned scent that still clings to the underside of your sleeve. Outside, the frost has arrived without knocking. Not heavy enough to turn the grass white, but enough to sting your feet through the wooden slats of the floor when you get up. You don't light the fire. You wait. There's something about the silence before anyone speaks that feels like a test. The spindle lies tipped over near the bench, its wool thread snapped clean across the grain. No one picked it up last night. K, too, is part of the tension. K. The spindle is not only a tool, it's a statement. If it's in your hand, you're working. If it's on the ground, you're waiting for someone else to move first. It isn't just about thread. You hear the pig before you hear the people. The animal's grunt is faint and damp, softened by the cloth stuffed into the window frame to keep out the wind. It rustles straw somewhere, maybe digging, maybe pacing. Pigs are clever enough to know when something is off. You don't know yet who will light the fire, okay? That will tell you who is willing to begin again. The daughter is the first to rise. She moves quietly, deliberately. Her hands rub her arms, not out of cold, but because they don't know what else to do. She passes by the spindle and doesn't pick it up. That tells you more than anything she could have said. She goes outside and you hear the door click shut in that careful way that says she's avoiding a creak. It's not about waking the house. It's about not waking the memory of the argument. You sit by the wall near the window. The light here is dim, but you can see enough. The clay bowl is still damp where it dried uneven. The bench holds the shape of someone's weight from the night before, and the wall still by the door has been touched again, smoothed, tugged. You can't tell, but the edge is bent over now, not hanging straight. The mother rises next. She doesn't say good morning. She moves past you like smoke, like someone half remembered. Her eyes are on the spindle, but she still doesn't touch it. Instead, she goes to the hearth and looks down into the dead ash, not like someone about to relight it, like someone seeing how much it costs to start over. She straightens slowly and walks to the water bucket. Her shoulders are stiff. It's not from age, from stubbornness. You hear the child stir, mumbling in sleep, but she doesn't get up, not yet. Then the brother comes in from the side door. His boots are still damp from the frost, his hands tucked under his tunic for warmth. He says nothing, just nods, once at no one in particular. His gaze passes over the spindle, the bowl, the hearth, and lands on the mother. She looks away first. You wonder if the frost outside is thicker now, if the pig's breath steams in the morning chill, if anyone's hands are warm. Still, no one lights the fire. The daughter returns with a bundle of sticks. Not a full load, just enough for a small flame. She kneels by the hearth. Her movements are slow, deliberate, but not quite reverent, as if she is offering a piece too fragile to name. The brother does not stop her. The mother does not help her. The fire doesn't catch on the first try. A twig snaps, but no flame curls upward. She tries again, and this time a thread of smoke appears. She leans close, breathing gently, coaxing it forward. You watch the flame crackle, unsure yet if it will grow. It does. No one claps. No one thanks her. Okay. But the fire lives again, and the room shifts. The mother moves to the bench. The brother picks up the spindle and sets it upright, resting it against the wall. He doesn't spin. Not yet. But it doesn't leave it on the ground either. The child comes into the room, blinking. She sees the flame first, then the spindle, then the wool. Her face is unreadable. She walks to her mother, tugs her sleeve and whispers something about porridge. You notice the salt pot has been moved slightly closer to the hearth. Nothing has been solved. No one has apologized. The pig still rustles outside, unsure of its fate, but the fire is lit. The spindle is upright. The wool has been touched, and the frost, even if it hasn't melted yet, will. But that brings you to a quieter question. One that hangs just behind your ribs. What happens if the frost stays longer next time and no one wakes up first to light the fire? You didn't see who dropped the feather. No one did. It wasn't there the day before, okay? And now it rests against the door lintel, like something placed with quiet purpose. Long, sharp-edged, black. Not the soft down of a hen or the delicate tuft of a sparrow, but the kind of feather you only find stuck in a thatched roof after a storm, or left behind by a crow with too much curiosity. It doesn't belong to anyone in this house, that you know for certain, but someone picks it up anyway. Carrie, the child, of course. The child always sees what others step over. She turns it in her fingers, then looks up at her brother with a furrowed brow. He doesn't take it from her, just tells her to leave it outside. Bad luck, he says, but softly, without conviction. She doesn't believe him. She tucks the feather into the woodpile instead, as if saving it for a moment no one has planned for. The morning moves slowly. People speak, but they don't finish their thoughts. The wool isn't spun. The water isn't warm. There's bread, but no one eats more than a mouthful. The pig outside has quieted too quiet. You wonder if it senses something in the air that hasn't reached the humans yet. Then comes the knock. Not a loud one, but it's firm, measured, from a hand that doesn't fear being turned away. They don't open the door right away. No one moves. You can feel its tension thickening around the edges of the hearth, curling under the bench and around the spindle's bass. It knocks again. 2 raps this time, as if to say, I know you're there. The mother is the one who opens it, and, not because she wants to, fingers fumble the latch, and she shifts her weight, like someone bracing for a gust of wind. The man outside is no one you recognize. He wears a cloak with one torn edge, patch sewn in haste. His boots are muddy, the soles scuffed, but his eyes are clear, too clear, like someone who sleeps with his head on stone and wakes to count birds before light. He doesn't introduce himself, nods once and says, I passed the marsh early. Look like one of yours out near the reeds. That's enough to bring the brother forward. He steps into the doorway, not past it. The 2 men at each other like dogs, waiting for a growl that hasn't started yet. The stranger adds, pig, pale ears, marked near the flank. He waits, but the house gives nothing back. The brother says nothing. The mother thanks him without meaning it. Stranger shifts his weight and looks down at the threshold. Then he adds too casually, the smith in Bardenfield says there's talk again about debts, about names not matching animals. Now the daughter appears, not because she wants to be seen, but because she's listening. She stands near the loom and pretends to examine the warp. The brother's face hardens. We don't owe anything to Bardenfield. Stranger shrugs. They think different. Someone's been selling meat under the wrong name, or so they say. You feel it like a ripple through wet cloth. The accusation isn't direct, but it's pointed. The mother folds her arms. Then Bardenfield can speak to the reeve, if they're so sure. They might, says the man, but talk moves faster than carts. No one invites him in. Number 1 tells him to leave. He glances toward the edge of the barn, where the pig should be resting. Would be a shame, he says, if something marked became something missing. That's the moment when the fire snaps. 1 log gives way, and a bit of ash jumps onto the stone. The child looks from the hearth to the man, and finally to her mother. Her voice is small, but certain. The pig's not missing. She's here. 2. Late, to pull her back. The man smiles, not kindly. Is she? Now the door closes, not slammed, but firm enough to stop the wind. They don't speak for a long time after that. The feather is still in the woodpile. The pig doesn't make a sound, canned outside. The man's footsteps eventually fade, but not before they pause, once right beside the barn. Nothing has changed, and yet everything has. The morning that began with frost now smells of smoke and watchfulness. The fire burns, but no one feeds it. The wool remains untouched, and the black feather still dry, still sharp waits without asking for a purpose. It was the rope that gave it away, not the pig, not the print in the straw or the bent post beside the gate, just the rope, dark, damp, curled in on itself like it had tried to slither away from blame. Someone finds it after breakfast, looped beneath the wagon where it should not be. It smells of water and iron and something else, something sour and faintly sweet, like rotted apples or the underside of a porch after too many weeks of rain. The pig is gone, not missing, not stolen, just not where she should be. No gate is broken, no latch forced. The children swear they didn't leave it open. The elder son says nothing, just kneels down, picks up the rope, turns it over in his palm like it might whisper what it knows. It doesn't. A quiet spreads through the house. No one says the word curse, but everyone thinks it. The old aunt mutters something about bad signs stacking like firewood. Someone mentions the feather. Someone else brings up the stranger from Bardenfield, though not by name. The mother, already halfway into her apron, tells them all to hush. Animals go missing, she says. Doesn't mean they're taken. Doesn't mean they're sent. Still, the father checks the west gate. The son checks the creek bed. And you're sent to the neighbor's yard, the one with the crooked fence and the pear tree that only fruits on odd years. The neighbor doesn't answer right away. You call twice before the door opens. Yours too, she asks, without hello. You blink. What do you mean? She steps outside and points to the empty pen behind her own house. My sow's gone. Left hoofprints down toward the ditch. Then nothing. Your heart quickens. You didn't tell her yours was missing. She just assumed, down the lane, someone else is calling for a dog. Not yelling. It's pacing, calling, waiting, calling again. And so it begins. 3 houses by noon. 2 pigs, 1 goat, 4 chickens, and a tethered calf, gone without noise, without mess, without anything left but rope or a snapped branch or a shallow dent in the hay dot. No tracks, no blood, no sign of fence posts broken or locks picked, just disappearance. One by one, as if the village is being quietly undone from the inside out. By evening, people stop pretending not to notice. They speak in low tones near the well. A boy says he saw a man in the trees last night. A girl says her sister's shoes were turned the wrong way this morning. A woman from 2 fields over says her ladder went missing and was found dangling from a tree branch wet. But it hasn't rained. None of it connects, but all of it feels wrong. Someone says the reeve should be told. Someone else says not to invite trouble, but trouble is already here. When the sun begins to sink, the family gathers near the hearth. The mother is kneading bread, but never adds water. The father checks the same gate 3 times. The brother sits by the window, turning the rope over again and again in his hands. Then the youngest daughter speaks, quietly. I saw her. No one moves. The child continues, voice small. She went into the low grove, where the brambles are. I saw her tail. She was walking, not running. How long ago? The mother asks. Before breakfast. One scolds her for not saying earlier. They gather what they must: lantern, staff, water, in a cord. No one speaks of what they're looking for, because it's no longer just the pig dot. It's the question, the silence, it's the unease that crept in like wood smoke and never left. The grove is quiet. too quiet. Twigs crunch, brambles scratch. A lantern swings in the father's hand, throwing light that doesn't seem to settle. They find nothing at first, just the trees. The scratch of wind through thorn. A few prints in the dirt, half hoofed, half dash smeared, and then the bucket. Not broken, not tipped, just ... sitting in the middle of a clearing, like someone placed it there carefully. It's the family's bucket, the one that went missing a week ago. The one no one truly looked for, because it wasn't worth the bother. Inside it is a dried apple slice, nothing else. No pig, no rope, no sound but the wind. They carry it back. They don't speak at the threshold of the house. The brother stops and lifts the slice to his nose, still sweet, still soft, as if it had never dried at all. You don't hear shouting the next morning. You hear nothing, which is worse. There is no bark from the dog behind the cooper's shop. No iron clink of the blacksmith's wife cleaning pots in her yard. No laughter from the girl who usually sings to herself while feeding the hens. Tight. Hens, like the pig, are gone. When silence takes hold of a village, it does not ask permission. It seeps from one yard to the next, from one room to another. And this morning, it rests in the fire ash. There's a spoon stuck in it. Not one of yours. It's old and narrower at the bowl, a split along the handle where the grain gave out long ago. But someone pressed it deep into the cooled ash last night, so deep the wood hasn't even blackened. Someone wanted to hide it, but not far. Just deep enough to be found by someone in the house, not stolen, not misplaced, planted. Your father turns it over in his hands. He doesn't ask whose it is. He already knows. It belongs to a woman 2 houses down, a cousin by marriage. The one whose son lost a lamb in spring and blamed no one but looked long and hard at your brother for saying it didn't matter. Now, her spoon is in your ash, in your heart. And even before your father speaks, you know what it means. They think your family did it, not just the pig. It's all of it, because your roof has held steady in storms, because your garden was spared from blight, because your uncle sent you a sack of barley last month, and no one else received anything from kin. You're too lucky in unlucky times. That's all it takes. Your brother stares at the spoon a long time before standing up and leaving the room. Your mother begins to bake. She doesn't speak, but she makes enough for 3 houses, not one. Honeyed bread, thinned stew. She packs the food in a basket lined with a rag, once meant for market cheese. She doesn't say the word for it. It's offering, but it floats in the space between her steps. You carry it. You go house to house. No one opens with warmth. No one invites you in, but they take the food. Some nod. One woman makes a sign against illness. Another doesn't speak at all. You say nothing either. Lower your eyes and hand over the basket when you reach the house of the woman whose spoon was in your hearth. She answers before you knock. Double quotes. Too much salt last time, she says. Even though no one brought her food before, you nod and hold the basket a little higher. She takes it, closes the door. No thank you. But that night, her husband walks past your fence and tosses back the spoon. It lands near the daisies, and you leave it there, 'cause picking it up would mean you're willing to carry it again. Inside, no one mentions the exchange. Instead, your sister combs her hair for longer than usual. Your brother sharpens a blade that doesn't need it. And your father repairs a broken stool leg that could have waited until next week. Everyone keeps busy. Everyone acts like this is normal, but someone nailed a bunch of garlic to the fence post. Not your family. Someone else, in the dark. You find it after dinner. It's been tied with horsehair and twisted vine, a sign that means warding, depending on the dialect, or warning. No one speaks when you bring it in. Your mother sets it gently beside the window, covers it with a cloth. It's the only thing she covers that night. No one sleeps well. You hear the father get up twice. You hear the bucket shift in the corner. Hear something scratching, not loudly, not even at the door. It's just enough to keep your ears open. In the morning, someone has drawn something in the ash. A circle, 2 dots, and a line across. You wipe it away before the others come down, but the shape stays with you. It isn't one you've seen in the books at the chapel. It isn't in the embroidery of the widow's cuffs or the carving above the well. It's just strange enough to not be nonsense, and that's enough to worry you by midday. Word spreads that the blacksmith's dog is back, muddy, limping, and tied with a strip of linen that doesn't belong to him, but the pig is still missing. And a child says they saw it tore something like it's in the woods past the pond, standing upright and watching the water. You're not sure what to do with that, so you sweep the ashes, you fetch more straw. You boil a root that smells like nothing and tastes like less, and when you open the door to let the steam out, you see the spoon again. It's been moved. It's pointing toward the grove. No one in your house touched it, so who did? You don't speak. The spoon that pointed toward the grove. But you watch it from the corner of your eye all day. It doesn't move again, not while you sweep the stoop or scrub the pot or chase the hen that keeps straying too close to the neighbor's fence. Still, no one admits to having touched it. No one leans close enough to see if the dirt beneath, it has shifted, but the shape of its pointing stays in your mind. The trees past the pond are older than the houses, older than the chapel, older than the men who once dragged their stones here and called this place theirs. The elders say the grove near the willow was once watched over by a family who never lived in the village, only above it. Their names are carved in a half-buried stone by the stream, in a language no one reads anymore, just worn loops and shallow runes. Everyone says the grove is just trees. Still, no one harvests from it. No one gathers firewood from beneath those particular boughs. You weren't told not to, but you remember being pulled back once when you were small fingers tight around your wrist. A whisper too low for words, and then a shake of the head. You hadn't stepped past the edge since dawn, until now. The path to the willow is not a proper path. It's a suggestion in the grass, made only by deer hooves and forgotten boots. The land is uneven, lumpy with stones, soft in places where underground water seeps up and makes the earth smell metallic. The willow is visible before you reach the grove itself. It leans, not from age, but from decision, as if bending to listen to something you still can't hear. The stone lies near the roots. It's no taller than your knee, chipped at the edge, slick with lichen. You've never looked closely. Today, you do. There's a marked dot, not the one from the ash bud, not far from it either. A circle, not closed. A line through it, dots above and below. Carved, shallow, but recent, not old like the rest. The edges are still pale, untouched by moss. Someone has been here recently. The ground is flattened. Where knees might have rested are bits of bark arranged in a circle. Something pale and stringy lies beside them, perhaps wool, perhaps hair. Could be nothing, could be everything. You listen. No birds, no branches creak, no wind, and for one long moment, you feel like the grove is not full of trees, but full of attention. Then the moment passes, and the breeze returns. You turn back. There's nothing behind you, but it takes effort not to run. When you reach the edge of the village again, the cooper's boy sees you. He doesn't greet you, just stares. His hands are smeared with pitch, but his eyes don't blink as you walk past. When you close the door to your home, you slide the bolt into place though. It's still mid-afternoon. The spoon is gone. Your mother says nothing, but her jaw tightens when she sees you. Her hands are already inside the dough. She doesn't ask what you saw. She doesn't have to. Your father comes in with a split nail and dirt in his beard. He says someone's goat is sick. The one that tried to mate with a piglet last winter. He doesn't say more than that, just washes his hands for longer than necessary. No one mentions supper, but everyone eats early. You all sit on the floor instead of the bench. No one lights the second candle. When you lie down, you keep your eyes open longer than usual, and sometime in the night, you hear it again. A sound from far off. A grunt, a shuffle. Not a human voice, not quite an animal's. Something in between. It doesn't get closer, doesn't fade, just ... stops. The next morning, the neighbor's fence is broken. The garlic is scattered. The woman with the honey patch won't come to the door. Someone says she's taken ill. Someone else says her husband left in the night. Hey, trail of prints leads toward the grove, but no one follows. Not yet. Not while the sun is still weak and the mist hasn't lifted. Instead, your father says he needs to visit the reeve. Your brother claims he's helping someone carry barley. Your sister finds reason to stay in the loft, but you are the only one who finds something beneath the step. A strip of cloth, thin, damp, browned at the edge, and tied in a loop knot, a knot. But a symbol is the same as the one scratched in the ash. It's not an accident, not a pattern. It's made by chance. Someone has chosen you, or chosen your family, or chosen the pig. You want to believe it's all one story, one answer, but maybe it's not. Maybe the story broke into pieces somewhere, like the fence, like the spoon, like the stone, and now each person holds a shard without knowing how it fits. You tell no one about the cloth, not yet. You tuck it behind the water pail, and for the rest of the day, you carry the shape of that mark in your head. Your sister says it sounded like a cough. Your brother says it was a bark, but not from a dog he knows. Your mother says it was the wind in the fence boards, and your father doesn't say anything at all. You're the one who opens the shutters. It's just a crack. Outside, the fence is still swaying, though there's no wind. The posts shake lightly, not violently. Not as if something strong is pushing them, but as if something is brushing past, again and again. You count the seconds. The movement stops, then begins again. The pig doesn't seem afraid. That should bother you more than it does. It's grown since you last truly looked at it. Its back reaches the lower edge of the trough now. The hair along its spine is darker, coarser. The little white patch near its eye has faded, or perhaps just disappeared entirely, and it doesn't grunt anymore, not like a piglet. The sound it makes now is slower, shorter, like it's listening for something. It doesn't approach the fence, not when it sways. It just watches. At dusk, the sound comes again. 3 knocks, slow, even, not like a hammer, not like a door. Wood on wood, perhaps, but wrong in rhythm. Not a sound from the village. It's not a sound from the forest either. You feel it in your stomach. The pig lifts its head. 3 knocks, then silence, then nothing, until the stew boils over and your sister shrieks, and someone swats her for using a word you're not supposed to say. That night, the cloth behind the water pail is gone. You don't tell anyone, but the next morning, your mother lays a strip of lamb's wool in the center of the table. It's braided at one end, smeared with something yellowish . No one asks where. She got it. She doesn't explain. But the next moment, she hands you a pot of honey and says you'll need to take it to the neighbor. The one with the fence. Achaia, the one with the garlic. You ask why? She says you're the only one who knows the path now. You don't remember ever learning it. But somehow, she's right. The neighbor's house looks smaller than it used to. The shutters are closed. A string of beads colored like river clay hangs from the lintel. There's something tied to the door. A sprig of dried mint, a feather, and a lump of rock salt bound in cord. You knock 3 times. You hear a shuffling inside. Then the latch lifts. The door opens just wide enough for one eye to appear. It's red-rimmed and watchful. You hold up the honey. The eye widens. The door opens a little more, enough for you to see that the woman is alone. Her hair is wrapped tight in a scarf, and her sleeves are soaked near the cuffs. She smells like vinegar and rosemary. She doesn't greet you, just gestures to a stool. You sit. She watches you. You set down the honey. She nods, then says, "It's not the pig, you know." You say nothing. She repeats it. "It's not the pig." Ask what it is. She doesn't answer. Instead, she picks up a small cloth bundle from the hearth and unwraps it. Inside are 3 small bones, blackened at the ends. Not chicken bones, not rabbit. You don't recognize them. She arranges them on the table. They don't fall like bones should. They rest at odd angles, all pointing in the same direction, toward the grove. She says nothing. You don't ask what she's waiting for, but you feel it when the silence grows longer than it should. Something outside knocks against the wall. Once, then again, then a third time. You both freeze. It's not at the door. It's on the side, near the shutter. You don't move. Neither does she. Then a long breath escapes her, like she's been holding it since dawn. "Leave it," she whispers. "Don't answer." You nod. She wraps the bones back up and shoves them into the ashes, takes the honey without thanks, and shuts the door behind you. When you return home, your brother is at the fence, staring again. You go to him, say nothing. He leans his elbow on the post, then says, quietly, "It's changing." You don't ask what he means, because you see it too. The pig's eyes are wrong. Not in color, not in shape, but in how they meet yours. It's no fear, no curiosity, it's no confusion. Just stillness, like it's waiting, or remembering, or both. That night, your mother adds 3 flat stones to the hearth, smooth ones, from the river. She doesn't explain, but when she lights the fire, she throws a pinch of flour into it. It pops, then crackles, then smells faintly of burnt sugar. Your father comes in later than usual, mud on his boots, straw in his collar. He looks at the pig, then at your mother, then at you. He doesn't ask. He just sets down a wrapped bundle on the table and says it was under the cart. No one opens it until he leaves the room. Inside, it's another loop of cloth, not yours. This one is thicker, coarser, smells faintly of goat's milk and wood ash, and is tied in the same symbol. Your mother unties it, smooths it, stares at the knot, then turns it over. There's something stitched on the underside. You lean in. It's a name, not yours, not hers, but one you've heard once, long ago, from the old woman who used to carry a cane with iron rings at the end. She died in spring, or at least she disappeared. The Reeve said she wandered too far and fell in the stream. No one ever found her body, just a single shoe wrapped in cloth with a name tied in a knot. You don't sleep well that night. No, one does. You know this, not because they say so, but because you hear them, each turning over. Each breath held too long, and just before dawn, the knocking returns. But it's not 3 this time. It's 4, even measured, like someone learning a new rhythm, and learning fast. By the time you step out into the yard, the sun is half buried behind the trees, and the cold is beginning to settle into the ground like a second skin. A thin rope stiff with frost dangles from the beam above the trough, still looped from where it was tied to keep the pig from running. It hasn't moved in hours. The pig itself lies still, but not sleeping. Not comfortably resting either. It's a sluggish sort of still, the kind that makes your cousin bend over to check its ears. Then it's breathing. Then whispers something to himself you can't quite hear. The children have stopped running in circles and started to hover. No more daisy chains or pebble stacking, just glances. One of them points at the rope. Another mutters, "It's not even eating the mash." You wish they hadn't said it. You already noticed. A bucket of warm water sits nearby, untouched. Someone tried earlier to offer some slop, but the pig only gave it a nudge with its snout before returning to the patch of mud beneath the eaves. It has barely twitched since. That's not normal. You kneel down to examine the trough, frozen along the rim. The edge of the mash has stiffened into a crust, and that smelled the usual mix of animal, straw, and heat is missing its usual sharpness. Instead, there's something sour, not entirely rotten, not yet, but edged with worry. Behind you, the voices have gone low again. First, the mother-in-law's, then your uncle's, then the voice of the woman who's supposed to bring the barley cakes for the winter fair. Everyone is beginning to speak in that low way that means they've decided something's wrong. But they don't want to say it aloud just yet. They don't want it to be real until it's necessary. You stand up and wipe your hands on the edge of your shawl. Someone has brought out another cloth square of wool and laid it across the pig's back. A gesture of care, or perhaps of guilt. You recognize the fabric. It's from the younger sister's old shift. Nothing ever disappears in a house like this. It only becomes something else. What if it's the oats? Someone asks. What if they were left out too long? Someone else says, firm. It's not the feed, it's the timing. Too cold, too soon. And that's when the real shift begins. No more wondering whose turn it is to bring water or who should carry the pail. Now it's about who forgot the signs, who pushed too long before the pig was ready, who waited too long when it should have been traded, who kept it here while the argument stretched from one hearth to another and back again. The blame comes like a slow leak. It starts with a raised eyebrow, then a cluck of the tongue. Then someone's aunt said something about the girls, sighed, and the mother-in-law stiffens. Someone else mutters. This is what happens when you argue over what isn't yours yet. No one says the word dowry, but it floats in the air, unwelcome and unescorted. You want to stop it. You want to reach in and drag the moment back into its place, tuck it behind the quiet cooperation that had finally begun to sprout in the last few days. The air has already turned. They've all waited too long. The pig coughs, or something like a coffin. Its side lurches. Someone flinches. A child cries out. A neighbor takes a step back. You don't know who reaches first, but suddenly 3 hands are on it, one at the neck, one behind the ears, one at the haunch end. They're murmuring things like easy now, and don't panic, and just breathe, beast. It doesn't help. The pig lurches again, and the rope creaks overhead. That frozen stiffness in the cord holds it in place a moment too long, then gives with a snap. The whole scene jerks forward like it's trying to shake itself loose from the day someone sends a boy running for the farrier, though he's not a vet. Another yells to fetch the pig man from 2 villages over, even though he won't come for free. Someone suggests slaughter now, before it worsens, but that earns a shout in 2 sharp words you don't repeat around elders. The pig isn't meat yet, not until both sides agree, and they haven't, not fully. And now, maybe it won't be anything at all. You step back and feel the crunch of frost beneath your heel. The wet patch near the trough has stiffened into something glassy. The rope, what's left of it, is looped uselessly around a splintered peg. The wool square has fallen into the mud. You pick it up, shake it once, fold it again. The question no one dares ask is forming in the space between everyone's mouths. If the pig dies, now today, who loses? Is it the girl's side, who brought nothing but a promise and a lace bonnet, or the boy's side, who insisted on feeding and housing it as proof of commitment? And what happens to the child who hasn't been born yet? The one the agreement was meant to make room for. The winter will still come. The oats will still need grinding. The dried turnips are almost gone, and the hens have stopped laying much. But now there's a sick pig in the yard, and too many voices, all trying not to admit they see what's coming. The sky is darker now. Not evening yet, but close. Smoke rises from someone else's chimney. Your toes are numb. No one wants to say the words, but everyone is watching the same breathless trough. How many more minutes can you all afford to wait? The pig died before morning. No butcher came, no farrier, no old pigman with a special oil made of mint and soot. Just silence, the kind of silence that settles in a house when someone knows they were right but doesn't feel any satisfaction from it. The kind that feels like damp wool, heavy, clingy, and impossible to wring out. No one speaks of who was holding the rope last. No one mentions how long it lay there before someone covered it with a sheet. It wasn't even a proper cloth, just the sack used for rye husks, pulled from the barn wall and flapped once to rid it of spiders. The pig was covered, and then the back door was shut. The sound of chopping kindling filled the hour before sunrise. The older cousin did it without being asked, though no one thanked him. Everyone moved slowly, as if the air had thickened. One of the children asked if it could still be salted and kept. His mother slapped the thought out of his mouth with a look. At breakfast, you noticed the bench was shorter. 2 people had eaten early and left. The mother-in-law's scarf was missing from its usual peg. Her husband's boots were gone too, and one of the smaller wooden tubs had vanished from its hook. Nothing was said, no announcement, no argument, just a space where 2 potties had been yesterday and now weren't. A quiet goodbye. They'd taken their portion of the oats and gone to the cousin's house near the chapel, perhaps, maybe just to the neighbor's loft to think. No one knew. Or if they did, they didn't say. Everyone had begun the long retreat into personal chores. The father rebaited traps. A daughter combed hay for dampness. The uncle scraped the last bits of wax from the candle ends. All of it done with the weary rhythm of a day no longer owned by anyone. The pig hadn't just been an animal. It had been a measure of time, a placeholder, a contract waiting to be signed by survival. It had stood between argument and agreement, like a thick-bodied symbol of something everyone could agree was too important to fight over, till they fought anyway, and now it was gone. Without the pig, the final decision about the marriage became less urgent, or maybe too delicate to press. There was no shared asset left to settle, no feast to plan, no meat to divide. It's the awkward reality of a family that had waited too long to trust each other. By midday, someone mentioned the fair. Not to go, just to mark the date. The aunt said the shoemaker's wife had been seen there last year, though she'd sworn off walking on cold cobbles since her toes turned gray. The comment came out brittle, like old bark snapped over the knee. Someone else offered tea made from boiled apple peel and fennel seed. It tasted like silence. The girl at the center of it all, the one who was to be wed, sat beneath the lintels, not crying, not complaining, sewing the hem of a second-hand apron into smaller squares, the kind used for washing or swaddling. Her needle moved without pause. She didn't look up. A few people whispered about her chances now. Would another offer come? Would her name be weakened by the broken arrangement? No one knew whether it had officially ended or not, but it felt ended. Like when a neighbor dies, but no bell tolls. You still feel it, and still, no one says it aloud. You step outside, past the place where the trough once stood. It has been scrubbed and turned on its side. A row of beets is stacked behind it, drying in the weak sun. The air smells of soap and sawdust, someone trying to erase yesterday with clean hands. Down the path, 2 men carry a fence post together. Their shoulders tilt in rhythm, like men who don't want to talk but can't help working. You realize you haven't seen the 2 fathers, the brides and the grooms. It's in the same place all day. They're avoiding the same thing. Marriage was never about love. It's not here, not for people like this. It was about cold months and future children, and whether the new sheep would lamb before April. It was about not being alone in the storm season. But sometimes, Even with all the logic and planning, things stop before they begin. Not loudly, not with slammed doors or torn contracts, just with a bowl left uneaten, a cloth dropped in the mud, a rope snapped in the frost dot. Later that day, the mother says something about moving forward. Her voice doesn't tremble. She's not the kind to let her voice betray her thoughts. She mentions the spinning left to do and the thatch on the east corner and how the cart's axle still needs checking before snow. Her voice makes a circle around what no one will name. You nod. Everyone nods, and nothing is said. But by nightfall, the bench is shorter again. The girl eats alone. No. Prayers are said aloud, and the rope, the one that had once held the pig in place, has been cut into smaller lengths and tucked into the kindling box like it never had another purpose. The questions don't come right away. They'll arrive in the days ahead, carried in from the baker's door, or whispered over the market's weighing stones. But tonight, everything is still enough to wonder if no one ends the agreement aloud. Was it ever truly made?